Hello gang, welcome to the stream. This is as always the Adrel show. So we are going to be doing another round of 10 to 70 speed leveling. What we're going to do is we're going to try an alternative method, and I do actually want to give credit to the original person who posted this, Jordan Lo-Fi Banshee on Twitter. And so I decided to try it out on a monk, and I've been pretty happy with the results so far. Now, I actually mentioned two different methods. Option A, which I'll come back to in a second, or option B, which is the more min-max approach. And option B, just to recap in case you guys didn't catch that stream or didn't see the video on demand, is that basically you do heroic dungeons until level 25, at which point you run normal Mogushan vaults, after which you hop back into heroic dungeons until level 35, then you do a normal Heart of Fear, then go back into heroic dungeons, about 2 or 3, and then you do normal Terrace of Endless Springs, and then you open up all of the loot items in your mailbox. Now through this we use a couple of different add-ons to make sure that even when we loot bosses, the only thing we loot is everything except for these bonus experience items that drop off the dungeon and raid bosses. Not so much of an issue for the heroic dungeons because the characters that we're boosting are just going to be parked at the entrance of the instance while our twink runs through and kills everything, and they just get everything directly in the mailbox. For the raids, however, we do want to actually loot the bosses because they drop threads that give you plus 7% XP bonus to your cloak. The only thing to note though is that the main thing, again, we don't want to loot is the bonus experience. We want to loot that all at the very end once we have the maximum possible amount of threads on our cloak, so that those bonus experience tokens power level us basically from around 41, 42 to 70 in just a couple of minutes, and we did it on the stream the other day. That said, when I did it the other day, I wasn't moving as quickly as I probably could have if I really wanted to min-max everything, and of course I do multi-box, and so we did 2 characters during that time. The reason we're doing this is a couple of things. The whole reason that we wanted to get as many characters from 10 to 70 as possible. The first is if you haven't gotten all of the remix rewards, that's the mounts, the toys, the ridiculous amount of transmog that's available, then having all of the bronze that you get from leveling a character to level 70, which is around 40,000 through quests that you pick up at level 50, 60, and 70 is the 3 quests, and at each of those milestones gets 3,000, 7,000, and then 30,000. So 3,000 when you hit level 50, 7,000 when you hit level 60, and 30,000 when you hit level 70. It's a great bronze farm because if we're able to get this done in around 2 or 3 hours, that works out to around 20,000 bronze an hour per character that we're boosting, plus whatever bronze you get from scrapping all of the gear and the gems, and also from the character that's doing the actual boosts. You will get some bronze there and a whole bunch of gear. So we did option B the other day, and it took us about 3.5 hours. Like I said, I wasn't really min-maxing as much as I probably could have been, but all the same, what we want to do is see if it's a little bit more efficient if we instead get these characters to level 42. I know it mentions level 22 here, but I think that's just a typo because it doesn't really make sense. What we're going to do is take these characters to about level 41 or 42 in heroic dungeons, get all of our heroic dungeons out of the way, so bang bang bang, knocking out heroic dungeon after heroic dungeon. I will talk about the level 20 twink in a second and why I feel that's even more efficient than using a level 70 character, but we're going to bang out all of the dungeons, and then we're just going to find one group with a whole bunch of 476 characters and blast through all these raids one after the other. What happened last time is we actually spent a lot of time filling a group for normal Mogushan Vault, and it took a while to fill that group. We weren't as selective. We did take a lot of lower level characters, lower level and lower eye level characters as well in those groups, so these groups ended up taking quite a bit longer, which definitely slowed down our over leveling time. And because we had to find 3 separate groups, that added a lot more time to the entire 10 to 70 run. My hope is that what we'll do is once we hit level 42, we'll create a normal world tour group and see how many higher eye level people we can get. But in doing that, we will basically have to assemble fewer groups. We should ideally just have one group. Best case scenario, we have one group with a whole bunch of 476s that just blast through all of these dungeons in about half an hour at most, and then we can open our mail and ding level 70. Worst case scenario, we probably have to replace a couple of people between each of these, but even so, I think it should still save us more time in the grand scheme of things. Now, the other reason we want as many level 70 characters as possible during MoP Remix is because we want to have as many alts as possible for the War Within. What we've looked at during the beta, Blizzard's explanations of how the concentration system is going to work, is that alt armies are going to be extremely powerful. We did also do a little test to see how long it takes between when you accept the quest for the War Within and when you can get your professions trained and start leveling them. And it didn't take us more than about 5 or 10 minutes per character to get them through the introductory quests and get them to the point that they can make it over to Dornigal, which is the new capital city, and learn the War Within professions. And at that point, as long as we just mail them all the materials they need to level their trade skills, they can already start crafting things, start running cooldowns if they're doing alchemy or tailoring or other professions that also benefit from cooldowns. But the biggest thing is going to be the concentration, right? And that is going to be extremely, extremely powerful, because basically the way concentration works is it's the replacement for inspiration, but it's a fixed amount. The pool on the beta is 500 concentration per trade skill per character. So what that means is basically the amount of skill that you can get from all sources, whether that's mats, whether that's professional equipment, whether that's basic skill, or that's your talent points. If you have, let's say, a 20 skill gap between the highest skill that you can get on crafting something and the amount of skill you need to craft it at the maximum quality, you can use up 20 of those concentration points to guarantee the next quality. Now, if I have only one character, I can only do, let's for simplicity's sake say that we need to use up 100 concentration to guarantee the rank of the item that we want. If we only have one character, that's only 5 crafts per lockout, right? If we have 5 alt, we can then craft 25 of those items at max quality within the same period. So it is really, really beneficial to have as many level 70 characters as we can. We have leveled a grand total at this point of around 6 or 7 characters. I want to do a bunch more. We took a first look at tailoring, and for tailoring alone, I could see the case be made to have 4 tailoring alts. And that's not just for the cooldowns. Ideally, we would have even more tailors than 4 so that we could use the cooldowns on even more characters. So it really is going to be a case, if you're sort of an industrialist goblin, I think is how I would describe it, like me, where I want to have an alt army and I want to just churn out as many crafts as possible. Having a whole bunch of alts is going to be super, super useful. Now, that said, the reason I think using a level 20 alt is a little bit more OP is a couple of reasons. A, you don't need to even have a paid WoW subscription. You don't even need to have paid Blizzard any money. You could actually do this with a completely free account. It would take you a little bit longer because having a first character that's level 70 in the remake that has unlocked the cloak achievements gives you a buff to your starting cape. But honestly, with the way that scaling works for level 20 characters, it doesn't make that much of a difference. So even if you don't have an active WoW subscription, even if you don't even have a WoW account, you've never bought World of Warcraft and you want to try it out, I would still recommend running a level 20 twink through all the content because it is just super fun. I think that a level 20 twink is a lot better because I can then run 2 of my actual accounts and level 2 characters at a time, including on my main account. Whereas if I was to use a max geared level 70, you would have to grind out all the bronze to max out the gear on a level 70, which you don't need to do on a level 20 because you get the highest eye level possible from all the heroic dungeons that we're running. The other issue is that the scaling is still not that great. You basically have to invest a lot more time into getting a level 70 character that can blast through heroic dungeons as quickly as a level 20 twink can, as well as the fact that you can instead use the account on which you're paying that sub for to level another character, which just seems a little bit more efficient in terms of time and energy and return on investment. All right, so this is the monk that we're going to be using to power level everything through. I've basically just stacked crit and versatility. Honestly, with the amount of power that I have, I probably don't need to bother. This character has a pretty hefty cloak for a level 20. We've been doing a bunch of heroic dungeons. We've run a lot of different things on this character. We've done quite a few of the achievements and got a bunch of threads. But I also did that before they buffed thread counts. So now threads reward 3 times as many stats as they did when I did the bulk of the runs on this character. So you would be able to catch up a lot quicker. Now, we are capped on this character at the maximum possible movement speed. Cap on movement speed is 49%, and that's purely from our cloak, right? We don't have any more speed gems on here. The balance of the speed that we have is coming from the fact that we're a monk, which is why we are above 49%. You could also run a level 20 twink as a windwalker because you do get a speed buff from there as well. I just find that queuing as a tank is a bit quicker, and it's a little bit better experience for the people who we're running with, because I think it's a little bit weird if you're queued as a DPS and then you're running ahead of the tank and pulling everything. On the level 20 twink, we have purchased all of the different jewelry that you can get, the neck piece, the trinkets, and the rings. These were completed on a level 70. I think on a level 20 there's only one piece that you can get. These come from achievements that are pretty trivial. Some of them are just for running scenarios. There's another one for running all of the raids on normal mode, which ideally you would do on your first character in any case, but they're not super critical. Honestly, the amount of stats that you get from your cloak alone on a level 20 is fairly significant. The gems are just because of the fact that we're looting a whole bunch of gems, and I haven't bothered to scrap all these, but that's extra bronze there as well. As you can see, we don't have any shortage of gems on this character. Of course, you cannot trade on a trial account, which is why we're capped at level 20. But honestly, the amount of heroic dungeons that we're going to be blasting through, you're going to pick up the gems super quick. And if you don't want to wait until you get all the right gems, you can literally just come over to this gem procurement vendor and buy these asynchronized prismatic gems for 200 bronze each. We are going to get just monstrous amounts of bronze. They've buffed the amount of bronze that you get from catches as well by 2x. So gathering bronze is not going to be an issue at all. I actually haven't had to buy any of the gems just because I've looted so many along the way, and it really does not take that many stats for this character to be super OP with the way that scaling works. All right, that said, we need to create the characters. I do have a couple of characters that have some rested XP, but I wanted to not use those characters just so this is as realistic of a run as possible, something that you guys can go and do right after watching the stream, or you know, don't have to do a lot of prep for. If you don't have a level 20 twink and you want me to do a video or a stream where I start on a fresh level 20 twink and sort of go through getting it set up, let me know in the comments or in chat, and I would be happy to put something together. All right, as you can see, we have 136% crit, right? Which doesn't really mean anything. We can't crit more than we strike, but 100% of our strikes are crits, and that's purely from our cloak. We don't have any crit on our gear, nor through our gems. It looks like we are also versatility capped. We're at 126% versatility. We're completely capped on this character just from our cloak. It looks like we are mastery capping at 134%. Leech doesn't make a difference. I honestly cannot kill this character if I try. Armor, again, nothing is hurting me. So we're just going to dump everything else into haste. Speed, we don't need. Honestly, this min-maxing is completely pointless. It is not going to add anything of value. I have found the best tinkers to be, first of all, using Chi-Ji. There's a couple of places where it gives you some additional movement speed. Killing mobs isn't difficult. Nothing, I've yet to encounter even a heroic dungeon boss that doesn't fall over in 3 hits of any of my spells, so we don't really need to bother using something like Life Storm. Chi is the only one that gives us movement speed, which is why we're using it. You'll see when we go through the dungeons, it's useful in a couple of places when I've already blown the cooldown on Roll, on Sprint, on Tiger's Lust, and I want to move that a little bit quicker. Now, in terms of Tinker Gems, Quick Strikes is extremely powerful. We want to use Slay because this will just murder mobs. Victory Fire, we're killing mobs super quickly, so it helps that every time we slay one of them, they damage the others. And we want Wind Weaver primarily for the speed boost, but the haste buff isn't too bad either. Alright, so that is our level 20 twin.